let's not forget this April, it's 5 years since the raid on my home, hotel, my law office. So this is a long time coming. This has not been like what they did to me, what the Southern District did. They gave me 48 hours to plead guilty. They were filing an 80-page indictment against me and my wife. Right? Very, very different scenario here. This is 5 years to hold this man accountable. Now, I do have to acknowledge that during that time period, he still was president of the United States.
Yes, but during that time period, you did, as we understand it, 22 interviews with prosecutors. And did it change? Help us understand what you were telling them those 22 different times. Was their line of questioning different each time?
It wasn't exactly the same, but there was a lot of overlap between when I first met with the district attorneys. I was in Otisville, and then they came back 2 additional times.
You were in prison when they first approached you.
This was under Cy Vance. You met 3 times in Otisville. They came to Otisville.
Yes, and then an additional 10 times once I was released. I had met then with the Mark Pomerantz team and the Carrie Dunn team, yes. Then 10 additional times with Alvin Bragg's team.
Bragg took over in 2022. You met with him numerous times, and specifically since January, how many times?
About 10.
About 10 times, so a total of 22 times. And so what Bragg's investigation proceeded significantly faster at the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, between 2023 and now. Did you know something was up when you look at the speed of the questioning and the witnesses who were going in?
No. I mean, this is Alvin Bragg's office. He will operate this case the way he deems fit. To be honest with you, I had no idea that it was dropping today myself. I was surprised. In fact, if you start to listen to all of the talking heads that are out there, these marvelous pundits that create scenarios, at the end of the day, in all fairness, they've been wrong. What they're trying to do is they're trying to guess what's inside the Christmas box, but they have absolutely no idea. And that's a mistake. We have to allow the prosecutors to do their job. I get it. People want to see accountability, and we've all been waiting for this accountability. That doesn't mean that Alvin Bragg or this team, and they're incredible, these prosecutors. They're really incredible prosecutors. I can only tell you that they have all the evidence, they know everything by heart, and I do truly believe that this case is very different than the way that so many of these talking heads want to declare it. I mean, how many people have been on this station sitting there, Michael Cohen's a convicted perjurer. Yes, that happens to be accurate.
Yes.
Right? I did. I pled guilty to 1,001 violation.
And does that make the case more on more flimsy grounds?
No. And times.
You know who else is talking about this? Donald Trump. So today he put out a fundraising email, tonight, I should say, after this information came out. And he basically said in this email to his supporters, Alvin Bragg is relying on the testimony of a convicted felon and a disbarred lawyer. So what is your response to Donald Trump tonight?
Well, he's right. I am a convicted felon. I am a disbarred lawyer, but I also brought the documents. There's plenty of testimony, corroborating testimony to go around. And come Tuesday...
How do you know that all these witnesses were corroborating your testimony?
Let's just say I know. I was there 22 times, so there's things that I know, things that I believe corroborate. And at the end of the day, we have an indictment today. Yeah. So clearly, that means that the information provided was more than enough for the grand jury to come back with a determination for an indictment. Oh, by the way, for Donald, since we're talking about convicted felons, see you on Tuesday, pal.
What kind of documentation are we talking about here? Are we talking text messages? Are we talking emails? What are we talking about?
Also, you have emails, you have text messages, recordings. They have all the information.
Yeah.
So this case does not hinge on your testimony?
No, I believe that the documents speak for themselves, and I do believe that we're all kind of jumping the gun just a tad in the fact that we don't even really know what these 34 counts are. It's a lot of counts, no matter how you want to slice it. 34 is a lot of counts. So let's see what these charges are, and then we can all come back and we can all sit and try to figure out more information.
You know what the pundits and the analysts are saying, that this is a weak case. Why this one? Georgia is a much stronger case. The folks are saying that this is not a weak case. They don't believe it's a weak case, and that Georgia could actually go first. They're saying that they don't coordinate, right? They don't coordinate what happens with the justice system. They can coordinate court dates because defendants can't be, if there are multiple indictments in different jurisdictions.
Done.
They can coordinate court dates, but they don't coordinate indictments.
Right.
And they have to go when they have to go, where the evidence leads. And there are things like the statute of limitations and what have you. But technically, Fani Willis in Georgia, if she does indict, could go first. They could coordinate and allow her to go to trial first, and this could go second. So that theory means nothing.
Who cares? I mean, this notion of, oh, this is a weaker case than the January 6th. I acknowledge that. January 6th was an insurrection like we haven't seen in 150 years in this country, where they attacked the Capitol, wanting to kill the vice president, wanting to kill the speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Yes, that in and of itself is a worse crime than this, but doesn't make this any less of a crime. You know, I always call this the Capone theory, the Al Capone theory. They couldn't get him on murder, extortion, racketeering, bootlegging, etc. They got him on tax evasion. If that crime, Don, was enough for me to be charged, fined, convicted, and sent to prison, why am I any different than Donald Trump? Right?
There is an audio tape of you speaking with Donald Trump about these payments. So let's remind everybody about that conversation.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
What financing?
We'll have to pay you. So, no. I got no.
Michael, honestly, it doesn't sound as though Donald Trump is giving you instructions there. It sounds like you're giving him instructions. You're saying, here's how it's going to go. He says, is it going to be cash? You say, no, I've got it all covered. So were there more payments made like this?
Right. Again, you're going into the sum and substance of conversations that I may or may not have had with the district attorneys.
Well, this is about Donald Trump. How many conversations like this did you have with Donald Trump?
One. It's the one and only recording that I ever had of Donald Trump. To be very honest with you, I don't want to provide Donald or his team with any insight yet into what's coming. I want him to be able to enjoy it.
But you did provide...
when it arrives.
So tell us this, because you've lived through this. So you have been indicted and arraigned. What will it look like next week, which is the timing we hear is happening? What will it be like?
And you went to prison.
You went to prison.
Twice.
What will it be like next week for former President Trump?
You know, he's right now trying to play the tough guy. Oh, I'm going to, make a spectacle out of this. First of all, the grifter in chief is going to try to do exactly what he's been doing, and that's to fundraise off of it. I think he made over $2 million. Who these dummies are that are giving their hard-earned dollars for a guy who gets indicted, I'm not sure. I didn't see anybody throwing that kind of money when I ended up getting indicted. It makes no sense to me at all. However, we do have to acknowledge that he is a former president, and there is a certain amount, despite whether you think he should or should not receive that benefit. He is a former president of the United States, and there's a certain way that we should handle this. First of all, there's a whole slew of issues. Yeah, he still has Secret Service protection. Putting handcuffs on somebody who's in the custody and care of Secret Service is not simple.
So it's going to be different than your experience.
Let's just say much different.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be handcuffed. According to sources, they said he's going to have an expedited arraignment, right, because of the unusual circumstances. There will probably be, the mugshot is still up in the air. There will be handcuffs.
No, that I believe he's going to have to. He has to be processed
I'm
the same
hearing,
way
I'm
as
hearing
everyone.
the mugshot is up in the air.
I think that would be wrong.
He will not spend
Handcuff
any
he
time.
doesn't need because there's no reason. On top of that, it creates all sort of security issues to have the former president, who, again, in the custody and care of Secret Service, to have his hands behind his back.
I'm told he won't spend any time behind bars, that he will definitely be fingerprinted.
Why would you say you mean when he's
because
in the
of the
holding
unusual,
there?
he won't
Yes.
be in
By the way,
the holding.
By the way, Don, personally, I don't want to see him paraded that way.
Why not?
Remember, because he's a former president of the United States, because I actually care more about the office of the presidency of the United States than he does. I don't want to see this made into the laughingstock of the world. He was still a former president. I mean, these are the things that you see from other countries like Venezuela, right? I mean, you don't expect to see this is a first time ever in the history of this country that a president, former president, has been indicted. This is unprecedented. And the more that we keep this, we'll call it classy, the better it is for our position in the world.
Well, on that personal note, Michael, obviously you know or knew Donald Trump very well, worked with them very closely for many years. What's he doing tonight behind the scenes? How is he handling something like this tonight?
He's seething. And to the world, he wants to again appear to have this thick skin. He's not thick-skinned. Right? I think we've also saw that during the the correspondence dinner. He is not thick-skinned. He's actually very thin-skinned, and he has a very fragile ego. This is his biggest fear, that he will be mugshotted, and that he's going to now have a felony next to his name. These are not things that Donald Trump ever thought in his entire life, nor I, for that matter, that he would ever be confronted with. And as we all know, Donald is not a person who likes to accept accountability. It has to be on somebody else, always. Unfortunately, he's the one that's going on Tuesday, right, in order to get fingerprinted and mugshotted.
Do you feel vindicated?
No, this isn't an issue of vindication. I tried to explain that before.
Your book is called Revenge.
Yes, but is it revenge by him or revenge on me? How Donald Trump weaponized the United States Department of Justice against his critics. So it's a sort of a play on words. This isn't about vindication. This is about accountability. This is about the adage that no one is above the law. This is also about that whatever laws that sent me to prison should send him to prison. We're all supposed to be looked at in the eyes of the law the same. I've been shouting for 5 years from the rooftop the lies by the Southern District of New York against me for the tax evasion. I actually hope it comes out. I have all the documents to show there was no tax evasion. I've never in my life tax evaded. I've never filed a late tax return. I've never been audited. I've never received, letters from the IRS. I never had an opportunity to go in and to meet with an agent, and none of this is accurate.
No, you have been telling the same truth, the same story to us, certainly when we've interviewed you. But I mean, looking at Donald Trump in the face.
Oh, I have no problem with that because I am standing as truth to power. This has kind of been, if you think about it, over the 5 years, it's like a David and Goliath sort of scenario, right? It's very biblical if you think about it. And at the end of the day, yes, I am the smaller guy. I am the David, but somehow or another, Goliath is on his back.
Michael, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate talking to you tonight.
Good to see you both.
I really do. It's an incredible interview. Thank you.
But when I was watching Michael Cohen, I was looking at it as a prosecutor, thinking to myself, I've got to overcome the very obvious point. This man's got an axe to grind. You obviously cannot stand Donald Trump. You looked at the camera and told him to, almost the equivalent of buckle up, pal, it's coming for you, wanting him to enjoy whatever comes on Tuesday.
Ellie, should Michael Cohen be on television talking if he's going to be testifying?
Absolutely not. This is the last thing prosecutors want. And it doesn't help that Michael Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, is out there doing the same thing. Michael Cohen is going to be a central witness in this case. Every word he says is fair game for cross-examination. And one of the points that's going to be made is that Michael Cohen has a major, deep, seething hatred for Donald Trump. And we could see it in that interview right there. You could list some of the worst words in the world. Michael Cohen has used them to talk about Donald Trump. Now, people may say, I understand why he feels that way, given what he went through for Donald Trump. But still, it's going to be open season for the defense lawyer to paint Michael Cohen as a biased witness with a personal axe to grind. And every one of these media appearances gives the defense more ammunition on that.
He also repeated during that interview his denial that he's guilty of some of the crimes he already pled guilty to in the Southern District of New York, some of the tax fraud crimes in particular. And so that just shocks me that we have somebody who's going to be an important witness for the government in this case brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, who's now saying that he, under oath, pled guilty to crimes that he now says he didn't plead guilty to. So that's just, on top of the bias, a huge problem for prosecutors.